There is a difference between a man who has money and a man who has only money. You have met both kinds. You know the difference even if you have never said it out loud. The first kind carries it lightly. It is one thing about him, not the whole thing. He does not need you to see it. He does not need it to speak before he does. He does not reach for it when a room stops going the way he wants. The second kind is different. The second kind has organized his entire life around a single belief that everything in this world has a price, and that the only question worth asking when you want something is how much. Not whether. Not if it's right. Not what it costs the person on the other side of the transaction. Just how much. The man who walked onto my stage that morning with an envelope in his inside jacket pocket was the second kind. And by the time I understood exactly what he was willing to do with that envelope, what he believed it would purchase, what he believed I was willing to sell, I had already decided what the next 60 seconds were going to look like. I have been a black man in America for 67 years. I grew up in a house where money was something you chased and prayed over and stretched and counted on a kitchen table on a Friday night. I know what it feels like to not have enough. I know what it feels like to watch someone who has too much use it as a weapon against someone who has none. I have been on both sides of that distance. I know exactly what it smells like when a man pulls out a wallet in a room where a wallet has no business being. That morning it smelled like what it always smells like. Like he had already decided the answer before he asked the question. Today I am going to tell you 3 things. I am going to tell you what that man did in the middle of a live taping of my show and what he believed it would get him. I am going to tell you what I said to him and why I did not say more. And I am going to tell you about the woman who was sitting 10 feet away when it happened. Who she was. What she had survived to get to that stage, and what she did with what she won when nobody tried to take it from her. Stay with me. Subscribe to this channel right now and turn on the notification bell. Because the part of this story that the internet clipped and shared left out the only part that actually matters. If you have ever watched someone try to buy something that was never for sale, you need to hear every word of what comes next. Subscribe, then don't move. It was a Friday in early October in Atlanta. Marcus has been my stage manager for 11 years. He is the kind of man you want beside you on live television. Steady, specific, never dramatic about the wrong things, and always dramatic about exactly the right ones. When he comes to me with something, it is because the something is real. He came to me at 12:40 that afternoon, 40 minutes before we were set to tape. He said, "The gentleman in Bay 2. Hargrove." He came in asking about the prize structure before he asked where the restrooms were. He asked one of our producers whether the game outcomes were predetermined. He asked it twice. The second time he said, and I am giving you his words exactly, "I assume there's some flexibility in how these things go." I asked Marcus what the producer said back. Marcus said she told him there was no flexibility. He smiled and said of course, and hadn't brought it up since. But he had been watching the production setup for 30 minutes, and he had that look. I asked what look. Marcus said, "The look of a man who is still working on the plan." I told Marcus to stay close. Walter Hargrove was 64 years old. He had made his money in private equity, the kind of money that does not come from building something, but from buying things that other people built and extracting what can be extracted before moving on. He was a large man, broad through the chest, silver-haired, with the kind of physical presence that has been used, over 64 years, to take up exactly as much room as it wants to. A suit that cost more than most people's car payments. A tie pin. Gold, a ring on his right hand that was not a wedding ring. He moved through the pre-taping area the way men like him move through rooms they have decided belong to them before they have been in them long enough to know. Not arrogant. Past arrogant. The kind of man who has been told yes so many times and for so long that the concept of no has become to him a negotiating position rather than an answer. The woman across the stage from him was named Patricia. 44 years old. She had driven herself to the studio from Macon, Georgia, 3 hours and 14 minutes. She had taken the day off from her job at a medical billing office, which she had been working at for 9 years. She had 2 daughters, 14 and 16. She had worn a blazer over a blouse, and she had her reading glasses in her front pocket, and her hair was done, and she was sitting up very straight, in the way of a person who has decided that if she is going to be somewhere new, she is going to be there all the way. Her hands were folded in her lap. Not relaxed. Held. The way you hold your hands when you are keeping them from showing how much this moment means to you. Because showing how much something means to you in a room full of strangers feels dangerous. She had the face that should have been easy and open. It wasn't yet. It was waiting. The face of a woman who has learned over 44 years that things that look like they might be good have a way of costing you something before they are finished. I saw her from across the stage and I thought, this one has been working very hard for a very long time. I hoped today would be easy for her. Lord, forgive me. I had no idea what was coming. Patricia was extraordinary at the game. She had clearly prepared, not in the nervous, overstudied way that tends to fall apart under pressure, but in the deep, settled way of a person who spent years in a classroom learning things, because learning things was the way through. She answered quickly. She played the strategy rounds with the kind of calm confidence that does not come from arrogance, but from having made hard decisions under harder circumstances for long enough that a game show decision feels, by comparison, almost restful. The crowd found her inside the first 10 minutes. Not because she was performing for them. She was not. Because she was simply, completely herself on that stage, and what she was someone you wanted to be in her corner. And then, somewhere in the third round, the fear left her face. Not all at once. The way light changes, gradually, and then completely. Her shoulders came down. Her hands unclenched from her lap and rested easy, and when she got an answer right that the audience didn't expect, she laughed. The real laugh. Open, unguarded, the kind that forgets there are cameras and does not care. For those few minutes, Patricia from Macon, Georgia, who had driven 3 hours and 14 minutes and taken a day off work she probably could not afford to take, was just a woman who was good at something and knew it, and was letting herself know it in front of people. It was something to see. Walter Hargrove, in the seat across the stage, had stopped playing the game as a game approximately 6 minutes earlier. He was watching the scoreboard. He was watching Patricia's score specifically. And he had his right hand inside his jacket. Between rounds 3 and 4, during a production pause, Walter Hargrove raised his hand, actually raised it, the way a man raises his hand in a meeting to signal that what he is about to say is reasonable and administrative, and he asked one of the floor producers, in a carrying voice, whether there was a provision for guests to make charitable donations in lieu of taking the prize. The producer said she did not understand the question. Hargrove said, pleasantly, that he was simply wondering whether the prize structure had any flexibility. That some guests preferred to redirect winnings, that he was happy to discuss it further with whoever handled those arrangements. The producer said she would look into it. Hargrove said, "No rush." No rush at all. He said it the way a man says something when he knows there is a rush and has decided that performing patience is the fastest way to get what he wants. I heard all of it from my mark. I kept my face exactly where it was. I did not look at him. I looked at Patricia. She had heard it too. She was looking at the scoring board with the careful, neutral expression of a woman who has learned not to react to things she does not yet fully understand, because reacting too early gives the room information you may need later. She was smart. She had understood something. She was waiting to see if she had understood it correctly. The second moment came 90 seconds into round 4. Patricia answered correctly. Her score moved. The audience responded. And Walter Hargrove reached into his inside jacket pocket, removed a white envelope, and set it on the edge of his podium. He did not open it. He did not wave it. He simply set it down where it was visible. To me, to the cameras, to Patricia, and he left his hand resting beside it. Casual, proprietary, the way a man sets something down when he wants a room to see that he has it. Patricia's eyes went to it. Then to me. Then back to the scoring board. Dead silence from the front 4 rows. The kind of silence where people are watching something and are not sure yet whether what they are watching is what it looks like. The kind that is holding its breath. Before I tell you what Walter Hargrove said when I walked to his podium, and I am going to tell you word for word, I want you to do one thing for me right now. Drop one word in the comments. Just one word. Tell me what you would have done if you were standing on that stage and a man in a 3-button suit set a white envelope on the edge of his podium and left his hand resting on it. Drop the word. Then, stay with me. Because what he said, and what I said back, and what happened in the 30 seconds after that, that is the only part that matters. I set my microphone on the host's podium. I walked to Walter Hargrove's position. Slowly, every step deliberate. Not hurrying. Not performing urgency. Just walking the way a man walks when he has already made his decision and the only thing left is to arrive. I stopped 3 feet from the podium. I looked at the envelope. Then I looked at him. He met my eyes without flinching, which told me he had been in rooms like this one before. Rooms where what he was doing had been noticed, and where he had found that the noticing was manageable. He believed this was manageable. He believed that whatever I was about to say was a negotiating position. He said, in a low and reasonable voice, "I think we can make this work for everyone, Steve. There's enough in there for the show, for the lady, and for you. Nobody loses. Everybody goes home happy." He said my name. He said it the way you say the name of someone you have decided you can afford. He tapped the envelope once with 2 fingers. He smiled. The kind of smile that has closed 100 rooms before this one, and fully expected to close this one too. I did not move for 7 seconds. 7 seconds of live television with every camera on my face, and 200 people holding the same breath. 3 things moved through me. In order. The first was the part of me that grew up without. The part that knows what it is to be on the wrong side of what money can do in a room. I have spent 40 years getting to a place where no man can stand in front of me with an envelope and expect the answer he is looking for. And standing in front of this man in this moment, I felt what it costs to have traveled that distance. And I felt, clearly and without any confusion, that what was in that envelope was not an offer. It was a test. He was testing whether I was the kind of man who could be purchased. I did not need 7 seconds to know the answer. I needed 7 seconds to decide how to say it. The second thing was my father. Broderick Harvey Sr. worked at the Ford plant in Cleveland for 28 years. He never made the kind of money that came in white envelopes. He came home every night with the smell of iron on him, and he sat down at the table and he was honest. He did not have many rules, he said out loud, but one of them he said more than once: "Son, when a man tries to buy you, the price he names tells you exactly what he thinks you are. Don't let him be right." I have carried that sentence for 57 years. The third thing I saw was Patricia, standing at her podium with her hands resting on its surface, watching me. Not the envelope. Not Hargrove. Me, and her expression was the one I recognized from the opening of that taping. The waiting face, the checking face, the face of a woman who has learned that things that seem like they might be good have a way of costing you something. She was watching to see if she was about to be right again. She had driven 3 hours and 14 minutes. She had 2 daughters at home. She was winning honestly. I made a decision. I looked at the envelope on the edge of the podium. Then I looked at Walter Hargrove. I said, "I am going to ask you to take that back." Not loud. Not performed. The way you say something when it is the only thing left to say and you have no interest in dressing it up. He did not move. I said, "There is nothing in that envelope that belongs on this stage. Not because of what's in it. Because of what you thought it would do." He opened his mouth. I said, "I'm not finished." He closed it. I said, "This woman has been playing this game for 45 minutes. She has answered every question she knew, and she has played every round she was given, and she is ahead of you because she earned it. There is no envelope in the world that changes what she earned, and there is no number in that envelope that tells me anything except what you think of the 2 people you just tried to buy." I did not raise my voice. I did not point. I did not look at the cameras. I did not perform for a single person in that building. I said 8 more words. "Security is going to walk you out right now." I did not wait for a response. I turned to my left, where Dwayne, my head of security, 9 years with me, not a man who needs to be told twice, was already moving. Hargrove picked up the envelope. He put it back in his jacket. He straightened his tie pin with one hand, a small, automatic gesture. The kind a man makes when he needs to do something with his hands and has nothing left to say. And he walked off the stage with Dwayne beside him. He did not look at Patricia. I waited until he was through the side door. Then I picked up my microphone. And I turned to Patricia. She was still at her podium, both hands resting on the surface. She was looking at me with an expression I will not forget as long as I live. Not relief, not shock, not triumph. Something quieter than all of those things. Something that looked like a woman who has been waiting a long time to find out if the world is occasionally, in small and specific ways, fair, finding out that it was. I said, "Now." "Where were we?" She laughed. The audience came up so fast and so loud that my floor director told me afterward he thought something had gone wrong with the sound system. It had not gone wrong. It had gone exactly right. If you are still with me, share this video right now with one person in your life who needs to hear that what a person earns honestly cannot be taken from them, not by a man with an envelope, not by anything. One share. Then come right back. Because what Patricia did after that Friday is the reason I am telling this story today. Patricia won the game. She won it honestly, the way she had been playing it since 12:40 in the afternoon, question by question, decision by decision, without anyone handing her anything or adjusting anything in her favor. She played every remaining round the same way she had played the first ones. Clear-eyed, composed, quick, and when the final score was counted, she had won by a margin that had nothing to do with luck and everything to do with 34 years of paying attention to the world and remembering what she learned. The prize was $11,000. After the taping, I sat with her for a few minutes in the corridor outside the stage. She had her blazer folded over her arm and her reading glasses back in her pocket, and she was eating a sandwich from the craft services table with the specific focus of a woman who skipped lunch because she was too nervous to eat and is now very hungry. I asked her what she was going to do with the money. She thought about it for a moment. Not performing, thinking. Actually thinking. She said, "My older girl has been wanting to take the SAT prep course. The real one, not the free one. It's $400. A pause. "And I have been driving a car with a transmission that I have been nursing for 2 years and praying over every morning. Those are the two things." She took another bite of her sandwich. "And I'm going to put the rest away. For something I haven't figured out yet, but I'll know it when I see it." I told her I thought that was exactly right. She said, "That man with the envelope. Does that happen a lot?" I said, "Not like that, no." She nodded slowly. She said, "I figured he thought the show was like everything else, that if you had enough, you could just buy your way to the front." She looked at me. "Thank you for not letting him." I thought about my father at the kitchen table. I thought about the sentence I have carried for 57 years. I said, "You did the work." I just kept the game honest. She finished her sandwich. Then she drove 3 hours and 14 minutes back to Macon. So let me bring you back to where we started. There is a difference between a man who has money and a man who has only money. The man who has only money will always, eventually, reach for it in a room where it has no business being. Not because he is evil. Because it is the only tool he has ever needed, and he has never once been in a room where it failed him until now. What Walter Hargrove found out on a Friday afternoon in Atlanta is that there are rooms in this world where the envelope stays in the jacket, where what a person earns by knowing things and playing honestly and showing up and doing the work cannot be redirected or purchased or repackaged as somebody else's generosity. Rooms like that are rarer than they should be. But they exist, and the Patricia in your life, the one who has been driving a car she prays over every morning and working 9 years at a job that is steady but not easy, and raising children she is doing her absolute best for. She deserves to find one. She deserves to stand in a room where the game is straight and the score is honest, and nobody with an envelope gets to decide what she is worth. You can be that room for someone. You do not need a television stage. You need to be the person who, when the envelope comes out, says clearly and without performance, "Not here, not her, not today." And means it. And does not wait to see how the room responds before you decide. That is all it takes. If this story reached you, if it reminded you that integrity is not the absence of temptation, it is what you do when the envelope is sitting right in front of you, do 3 things before you go. Subscribe to this channel. Because there are more stories about what ordinary people do with their dignity when someone tries to take it, and they deserve to be told. Share this with one person in your life who has been working honestly toward something and needs to be reminded that what they have earned cannot be purchased out from under them. And drop a heart in the comments for Patricia. 3 hours and 14 minutes from Macon. 2 daughters at home. A transmission she prays over every morning. And the fastest hands on the buzzer in that building. She went home with $11,000 she won herself. Every single cent. God bless Patricia. God bless every woman who has been driving on faith and working on not enough and still showing up, still playing, still winning. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. I'll see you in the next one.